Zara Nanjala woke up early that Christmas morning, her heart full of hope. For years, Christmas had felt heavy, but this time she wanted things to be different. She dressed her little boy, Imani, wrapped him warmly, and placed the carefully chosen gifts on his wheelchair tray. As they traveled through Macon Valley toward her father's house, Zara kept telling herself, maybe this year, maybe he'll finally welcome us. When they reached the old gate, Zara smiled. Imani clapped his small hands, excited to see his grandfather. Zara pushed his wheelchair up the path, feeling her heartbeat rise with nervous happiness. She had spent nights choosing gifts for her father and for his stepchildren. She wanted peace. She wanted family. But the moment Zara reached the doorstep, something felt wrong. Before she could even help Imani over the small step, the front door swung open. Standing there was Ruth, her stepmother, wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Zara. You're here," Ruth said, her voice sweet but cold underneath. Zara tried to ignore the strange tone. "Merry Christmas, Ruth. We brought gifts." Imani was excited to see. Ruth stepped forward, blocking the entrance completely. Her smile tightened, the kind of smile that hides something sharp. Her eyes flicked to Imani in his wheelchair, then back to Zara, and the warmth in them disappeared. Zara's excitement began to fade, replaced by a quiet fear. She gently held Imani's shoulder, trying not to show her worry. She had hoped today would be different, but the coldness in Ruth's eyes told her this Christmas morning was about to break her heart. Ruth stepped out of the doorway like she had been waiting for this moment. Without even greeting them, she reached for the gift bags in Zara's hands. For a second, Zara felt relieved, thinking Ruth was finally accepting them. But then, right in front of her, Ruth bent down and placed the gifts on the cold ground, like they were trash. Zara froze. "Ruth, why would you put them there? Let me take them in." Ruth straightened up slowly, her lips curling into a grin that made Zara's stomach twist. She looked Zara up and down, then glanced at little Imani sitting quietly in his wheelchair, clutching his stuffed lion. She leaned forward and whispered, loud enough to stab Zara's heart, "This Christmas is for real family. Not you, and not that child." For a moment, everything around Zara went silent. Even the wind felt colder. Imani looked up at his mother, confused by the sharp tone in Ruth's voice. Zara swallowed hard, trying to protect him from the words she herself could barely handle. "Ruth, please don't say that. He's just a child," Zara said, her voice trembling. "My father is inside, right? Can I just—" Ruth held up her hand, cutting her off like she was nothing. "You heard me. Go home. This house is not for outsiders. Not today. Not ever." Before Zara could take a single step forward, before she could even gather her thoughts, Ruth grabbed the door, pulled it sharply toward herself and slammed it shut. The loud click of the lock echoed in Zara's chest like a punch. Zara blinked, stunned. She knocked once. Her voice cracked as she called out, "Baba? Baba, please, can you hear me? Please open the door. It's cold. Imani is cold." No answer. Just the sound of holiday music from inside and the laughter of Ruth's children, laughing like everything was normal, like Zara and her son didn't exist. Imani tugged lightly at his mother's sleeve. "Mama, why can't we go inside? Did Grandma get angry?" Zara knelt beside him, the freezing ground biting into her legs. She pulled him close, trying to shield him from the cold and the cruelty happening just a few inches away behind that locked door. Tears filled her eyes, not because of the humiliation, but because her son had to see it again. She pressed her forehead to Imani's and whispered, "You did nothing wrong, my love. Nothing." But inside, her heart broke wide open. They had been locked out not just of a house, but of a family they were still trying to belong to. Zara kept knocking harder each time, her fist aching from the cold. "Baba, Baba, please, just open the door for a minute," she cried. Her voice shook, not from shame but from fear for her son. She pressed her ear to the wooden door, hoping, begging, for any sign that her father still cared. Instead she heard laughter, plates clinking, music playing, Ruth's children running around, and then her father's deep laugh, the laugh she grew up with, the laugh she used to run toward as a little girl. Hearing it now felt like a knife turning inside her. Baba, I know you hear me, she cried again, knocking with both hands. It's us. It's Zara and Imani. Please just talk to me. Nothing. No footsteps coming toward the door. No voice calling her name. No warmth. Only silence from the man who used to carry her on his shoulders. Behind her, Imani shivered, his small teeth clicking softly. He hugged his stuffed lion, his little hands trembling. Mama, I'm cold, he whispered. Those words broke her. Zara rushed to him, dropping to her knees on the cold ground. She took off her own coat, thin and not warm enough for this weather, and wrapped it around him, tucking it under his legs so the wind wouldn't get in. Her arms shook as she tried to rub warmth into his tiny hands. It's okay, baby. Mama's here. Mama's right here, she whispered, though she was freezing too. Tears slipped down her cheeks, hot against the cold air. She didn't even bother wiping them. They wouldn't stop anyway. She looked back at the door her father refused to open. The door behind which he laughed like she didn't exist. Like her son wasn't his grandson. Like they were strangers. A painful truth settled in her chest, heavier than the winter air. He heard her. He knew she was out here. And he chose silence. He chose Ruth. He chose her kids. He chose everyone except the daughter who still came to him with gifts and hope, and the grandson who only wanted a family. Zara held Imani close, her tears falling onto his little hat, and whispered to herself the truth she never wanted to face. My father chose his new family over us. And that realization hurt more than the cold ever could. Zara didn't know how long she sat there on the cold doorstep, holding Imani as he shivered in her arms. Her fingers felt numb, her knees were wet from the ground, and her heart felt like it was being crushed over and over again. She kept hoping the door might open, that maybe her father would realize what he had done, that he would come out and lift his grandson into his arms. But nothing changed, and the cold kept getting worse. Suddenly, a voice cut through the air. Zara. My God, child, what are you doing out here? It was Mama Kosi, the elderly neighbor who lived 2 houses down. She hurried toward them, wearing a bright shawl and slippers, her face full of shock and worry. Who leaves people outside on Christmas? She exclaimed, bending down to Imani. And this poor boy, he's freezing. Zara tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Ruth, she locked us out. Baba, he's inside. He didn't come. The pain in her words made Mama Kosi's eyes shine with anger. Get up, my child. Bring the baby. You cannot stay here one more second. She took Zara's arm gently and guided her toward her home. Inside, warmth wrapped around them immediately. The smell of ginger tea, the glow of a small fire, soft music playing in the background, felt like stepping into another world. Mama Kosi placed thick blankets over Imani and set him near the fire. She poured Zara a hot cup of tea and held her hand tightly. Tell me what happened, she said softly. Zara explained everything. The gifts on the ground, Ruth's cruel words, her father's silence, the laughter behind the locked door. As she spoke, Mama Kosi's expression changed from sadness to anger, then to something like regret. When Zara finally finished, Mama Kosi sighed deeply. My child, you don't know the real reason Ruth treats you this way. Zara looked up confused. What reason? Mama Kosi hesitated for a moment, then spoke carefully. Your mother, before she passed, she left something behind for you. Something important. Something valuable. Your father knew. Ruth knew. Everyone close to the family knew. But you were kept in the dark. Zara's heartbeat quickened. What are you talking about? Mama Kosi leaned closer. Ruth never hated you because of who you are. She hated you because you were the one thing she could never control. And she knows that if the truth ever comes out, you will take back everything she claimed as hers. Zara stared at her, shocked. Her heart, still hurting from the humiliation outside, began to burn with something else. A fire she had never felt before. A fire that whispered, there's more to this story. And it's time to uncover it. Zara sat in Mama Kosi's warm living room long after Imani fell asleep on the couch. The heat soothed her frozen hands, but inside her chest something was burning. Something new, something sharp. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't fear. It was anger. Quiet. Controlled. but powerful. All her life, Zara had tried to be the peaceful one, the understanding daughter, the one who forgave, who stayed quiet, who hoped things would get better. But being locked outside on Christmas with her shivering child, that was her breaking point. And that breaking point didn't crush her. It lit her on fire. When she finally left Mama Kosi's house and walked home with Imani sleeping against her shoulder, Zara didn't cry anymore. Her tears had dried, replaced by determination. She didn't want revenge. She wanted truth, justice, and her dignity back. And she was done waiting for anyone to give it to her. As soon as she got home, she laid Imani gently on the bed, covered him with extra blankets, and kissed his forehead. Then she went straight to the small metal chest she kept under her bed. She pulled it out, unlocked it, and emptied everything onto the floor. Old letters, screenshots she had saved, printed messages, voice notes, little reminders of every insult Ruth had thrown at her over the years. The subtle digs, the cruel comments about her being less deserving, the way she tried to make Zara feel like she didn't belong. Zara had kept it all, never knowing why. Maybe some part of her always knew a day like this would come. She opened her laptop and began organizing everything into folders. Every message was labeled. Every voice note was downloaded. She even found old photos of times Ruth had pushed her out of family events, and videos Ruth had accidentally sent while gossiping about her. As she worked, her anger grew steadier. Not wild, not bitter, just focused. She wasn't doing this to destroy anyone. She was doing it because she refused to let her son grow up watching his mother be treated like she was nothing. After hours of sorting, she sat back and took a deep breath. There was more than enough proof. Enough to show people who Ruth truly was. Enough to protect herself if things got worse. Enough to finally stand up. Zara looked at her sleeping son, his little chest rising and falling gently, his small fingers curled around his stuffed lion. She whispered, "No one is ever locking us out again. Not in this life." For the first time in years, Zara felt strong. Not because someone helped her, but because she finally helped herself. Zara thought she was done for the night, but something inside her whispered that she needed to look deeper. She had gathered all the messages and proof of Ruth's cruelty, but Mama Kosi's words kept echoing in her ears. "Your mother left something behind for you, something Ruth never wanted you to find." Zara couldn't ignore that. Not anymore. She went back to the metal chest under her bed and pulled out a faded brown envelope she had never opened. It had been tucked in a corner, gathering dust for years. Her mother's handwriting was on the front, soft, careful, loving. "To my Zara. Open when you are strong." Zara's hands trembled. She wasn't sure if she felt strong, but she knew she had to open it now. Inside were old documents, a few photos of her mother holding her as a baby, and a folded legal paper. It looked important, official, stamped by a lawyer from years ago. Zara sat on the floor, breathed deeply, and opened it. Her heart stopped. It was her mother's will. Not the version her father and Ruth had shown her when she was younger. Not the story she had been told. This was the real will. And written clearly, in black ink, were these words. "All my land and savings are to go directly to my daughter, Zara Nanjala. Not to my husband." Zara covered her mouth with her shaking hand. She read it again and again, as if the words might change. But they didn't. Her mother had trusted her. Her mother had chosen her. Her mother had left everything, land, money, and the small farm she loved, in Zara's name. Not a Betty's. Zara's eyes filled with tears, but not the same tears she cried on that cold doorstep. These tears were heavy with truth, truth she had been denied for years. Suddenly everything made sense. Why Ruth always treated her like a threat. Why she tried to push Zara out of every family event. Why she constantly whispered that Zara didn't belong. Why she hated Imani even more. Because children inherit what parents leave behind. Ruth wasn't cruel by accident. She was cruel because Zara stood between her and property she wanted for herself and her own children. Zara felt something shift inside her. A line that snapped, a final piece of fear that broke away. All these years she knew, Zara whispered to herself. She knew and she hid it. She looked at the will again, her mother's signature at the bottom. Her mother had loved her. Her mother had protected her. Her mother had trusted her with a future that Ruth had tried to steal. Zara wiped her tears and stood up slowly, holding the will to her chest. This wasn't just paper. This was her power, her truth, her inheritance. And now that she knew the truth, Ruth's days of control were over. Completely. 2 days after Christmas, Zara walked toward her father's house with a calmness that didn't match the storm inside her. She wasn't shaking this time. She wasn't begging. She wasn't hoping for kindness. She came with truth and proof, and the courage she had been denied for years. The house was full of noise, laughter, clinking plates, the smell of roasted meat. It was the annual family lunch, the same one she used to attend before Ruth decided she wasn't real family anymore. Zara didn't knock this time. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Instant silence. Every head turned. Ruth's smile froze on her face like it was suddenly glued there. She stood up slowly, lifting her chin as if Zara was dirt beneath her shoes. "Well," Ruth said loudly, "look who decided to show up after ruining Christmas." Zara didn't even look at her. She walked straight to the dining table, her footsteps steady, her heart thumping but strong. She placed a neat stack of documents in the center of the table. Land deed, bank statements, old account ledgers, and finally, the original will. The will Ruth hoped Zara would never find. Betty's fork slipped from his hand and clattered onto his plate. Zara looked around the room, her voice quiet but sharp enough to cut the space in half. "You locked me out of a house," she said slowly. "That was never yours. Not legally. Not morally. Not even in my mother's eyes." Ruth's face went pale, then red, then pale again. "What are you talking about? That is a fake. A fake paper she has made to." Zara opened the will gently, as if handling something sacred. Her mother's handwriting glowed like memory on the page. "This," she said, placing the will in front of Ruth, "is my mother's signature. The real one. The one you hid. The one that gives everything to me." A lawyer Zara brought stepped forward. "I've confirmed all documents. They're authentic. And legal." Ruth stumbled back, grabbing the edge of a chair. "Betty, tell them. Tell her this is nonsense. Tell her she has no right." But Betty couldn't even speak. He was staring at the will, his hands trembling, his face draining of color as the truth sank into him like a stone. He whispered, "Zara, I didn't know. She never told me." Zara looked him directly in the eyes. "Ruth told you what she wanted you to hear. And you believed her every time." Tears filled his eyes. Not because he cared about the property, but because he finally saw the damage he allowed. Ruth, shaking with rage, reached for the papers, but Zara's hand came down first. Steady, firm, unbroken. "You locked my son and me out because you thought you owned everything here," she said softly. "But the truth is, I was the owner all along." Gasps filled the room. Ruth opened her mouth to scream again, but this time no words came out. Zara stood tall, her voice calm and final. "This family lunch, this house, this land, none of it belongs to you, Ruth. My mother made sure of that." And for the first time ever, Ruth had no power left to hide behind. The room exploded the moment Zara finished speaking. Ruth shoved her chair back so hard it nearly fell, her voice rising in a panicked scream. "This is a lie. All of it. Zara forged those papers. She wants to destroy this family because she's jealous." But her voice cracked. Everyone could hear the fear underneath. The lawyer stepped forward calmly. "Mrs. Betty, these documents were verified by the original law firm. The signatures are authentic. The will is legal. The land belongs to Miss Zara." Ruth froze. For the first time she looked genuinely terrified. Not angry, not proud, not superior. Just afraid. Her eyes darted wildly around the table, searching for someone to support her. She grabbed Betty's arm desperately. "Tell him. Tell them I'm your wife. Tell them you will not let this girl embarrass us like this." But Betty didn't move. He just stared at the will, his hands shaking so badly he had to place them flat on the table to steady himself. "Ruth," he whispered, "you told me none of this existed. You said her mother left nothing." Ruth's face twisted. Because I was trying to protect us. That woman wanted to ruin your life. Zara's heart ached at the way she said, that woman. Her mother. The woman who had loved her until her last breath. The lawyer spoke again, his voice measured. Mr. Abedi, not only was the will hidden, but several transactions were made from accounts belonging to Zara's inheritance. I have copies here. He placed the papers in front of Abedi. Ruth lunged for them. Don't look at that. It's taken out of context. But it was too late. Abedi already saw the numbers. The dates. The withdrawals. The transfers into accounts linked to Ruth's relatives. He looked at Ruth, and something inside him broke. Did you use Zara's money? Behind my back. Ruth's voice dropped to a hiss. You think I wanted to live in poverty? You think I wanted to raise your children without support? Everything I did was for this family. Zara stepped back, watching as the truth unfolded like a painful dawn. For years she begged for a little love. For years she blamed herself for every cold look. For years she wondered why her father chose Ruth's children over her. Now she finally understood. Ruth controlled everything, including him. A heavy silence filled the room. Every relative at the table stared at Ruth as if seeing her for the first time. Abedi wiped his face with a shaking hand. His voice cracked when he spoke. All this time, you made me believe my daughter was ungrateful. You made me turn away from her. And you did it while stealing from her. Ruth's eyes flashed. I did what I had to. If she stayed, everything would go to her and that disabled child. The entire room gasped. Zara felt the words like a stab. Abedi pushed his chair back so suddenly it scraped the floor. Enough, he said, voice trembling with shame and fury. I will not let you harm my daughter anymore. Not her, not my grandson. For the first time in Zara's life, her father stood up for her. Ruth stumbled backward, her voice rising into pure panic. She screamed, cried, tried to argue with everyone at once, but no one listened. Her power, the power she held through lies, evaporated in minutes. Her marriage, crumbling. Her reputation, shattered. Her control over Abedi, gone forever. And Zara. She stood quietly, watching the truth finally shine in a place it had been buried for too long. She didn't feel joy. She felt release. The chains were falling off, and Ruth could no longer touch her life. Zara packed her few belongings and Imani's things into the car, her heart lighter than it had been in years. For so long, she had lived in someone else's shadow, bending to the rules of people who wanted to erase her. Now she was finally free, free to claim what had always been hers, free to build a life without fear, free to show her son that family could be loving and safe. The drive to her mother's land felt like a journey into a new life. The small farm stretched out before her, the same one she had dreamed about as a child, filled with wildflowers, fruit trees, and endless sunlight. Her mother had left it for her, hidden from Ruth's schemes, and now it was hers to care for. Zara parked the car and stepped out, breathing in the fresh air. Imani's wheelchair rolled over the soft earth, his small hands touching the grass as he looked around, eyes wide with wonder. This is our new home, baby, Zara whispered, kneeling beside him. A place where we can be safe and happy. She immediately set to work, turning the old barn on the property into a small therapy center for disabled children. It was a dream she had held close for years, a place where children like Imani could play, learn, and grow without feeling like they didn't belong. Zara painted the walls herself, arranged mats and toys, and built ramps so every child could move freely. Each corner of the space carried love, care, and determination. Word of Zara's story began to spread quietly online. A friend shared a short post about the injustice she had faced, and soon people from all over reached out, sending donations, books, toys, and equipment for the center. Zara didn't seek fame. She only wanted to make a difference. But the outpouring of support warmed her heart in a way she had never expected. Imani laughed as he played with other children in the yard, the sunlight dancing on their faces. Zara watched him, tears of relief and joy streaming down her cheeks. Every setback, every cruel word, every locked door had led them here, to this place of healing and hope. At night, Zara would sit on the porch, looking out over the land, her son asleep beside her, and whisper thanks to her mother for leaving her this gift. She had claimed what was always hers, not just land or money, but her freedom, her dignity, and her purpose. And for the first time in her life, Zara knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. 1 year had passed since that cold Christmas morning when Ruth had locked Zara and Imani out of the house. So much had changed. Ruth and her children had disappeared from their lives, and Abedi lived alone in the house he had once filled with laughter and lies. Zara, on the other hand, had built something lasting, a home, a sanctuary, and a dream realized. That morning, the sun spilled golden light across the therapy center. Children ran around, their laughter ringing through the air. Imani rolled through the yard in his wheelchair, his face glowing with joy as he played with friends who understood him and accepted him. Zara stood at the edge of the yard, watching him, her heart swelling with a mix of relief and pride. She looked around at the center, the walls painted bright colors, the ramps and mats in place, the toys scattered and loved. Each corner was a testament to the struggles she had endured and the strength she had found inside herself. This wasn't just a building. It was a promise kept, a dream fulfilled, and a safe space for children who needed it most. Zara whispered softly to herself, almost like a prayer. You locked us out, but you also unlocked our new life. Her gaze fell on Imani, who laughed as he chased a ball rolling across the grass. She remembered that cold, painful morning and the shiver in his small frame. Now he was warm, safe, and smiling. Her pain had transformed into purpose, and her purpose had become her victory. Volunteers and families gathered around, bringing small gifts and treats for the children. Some recognized Zara from the posts online about her story, and many offered words of encouragement, tears in their eyes as they praised the courage it took to rise above betrayal. Zara felt a quiet, steady joy that no words could fully capture. The humiliation, the fear, the locked doors, and the lies of the past year had all led to this moment, one filled with warmth, laughter, and love. She hugged Imani tightly and whispered again, "We made it, baby. We're finally home." This Christmas wasn't about gifts or decorations. It was about freedom, healing, and the life Zara had claimed for herself and her son. And for the first time she felt completely, beautifully victorious.